Just a courtesy announcement that we are now live on the internet in our meeting portal.
Welcome, Michelle. Would you like to check your audio?
Check audio. I believe it's working.
Sounds great. Thank you. Good afternoon, Richard. Would you like to check your audio?
Checking, test, 1, 2.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Virginia. Would you like to check your microphone?
Yes, our mic is working.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
What else do we have? Hello, Sonia. Would you like to check your audio?
Sure. Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Great.
And Guillermo, would you like to check your audio? I guess that's not strictly necessary. Hello, Ruth. Would you like to check your audio?
Hello, yes,
Loud and clear. Thank you.
thank you.
Just a courtesy announcement that we are live on the internet and the meeting portal.
Sheriff's Office, I see you there. Would you like to check your connection?
Yes, thank you. This is Sheriff Smith.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Anna, would you like to check your microphone?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a courtesy announcement, we are live on the internet and the meeting is being recorded.
If anyone who's just joined us would like to check your audio, please go ahead and check in.
Good afternoon.
Sounds good, Martin. Thank you.
Good afternoon,
Hello.
Ron Gonzalez here.
Ron, sounds good. Hello, Maya.
Hui Tran
Afternoon,
testing.
this is Melanie Aaron. Good to see everyone.
Thanks, Melanie. Sounds good.
Hui Tran testing.
Thank you. Hui, sounds good.
Good afternoon, all. And I'm going to ask if Kathy Trong in my office. Kathy, are you okay? Kathy, hi, when we as we start the meeting, after we complete public comment and before we go to the consent calendar, I want you to walk through how to make sure people know how to access the agenda materials, because one of the things I realized is that not everybody will know to look to the bottom of the screen and click. So I just want to make sure you can pull that up and everybody's got all the materials that they need.
Okay, got it. No problem.
right, we're gonna give everybody just a minute more. I know we're gonna take it. It seems like it should be easy once you learn how to use Zoom, and sometimes it just is unhelpful to you. I don't know why. Gremlins, I don't know.
Hey, Cindy, I just want to take a minute to thank Kathy so much for all her hard work in the last few days and weeks in responding to emails and trying to sort of manage it all. So thank you, Kathy.
Yeah, she's fabulous. Fabulous. So I'm going to go ahead and call our meeting to order. And good, I see Miss Maya there. And we are going to we have some new board members, and I want to just talk through the agenda as people are coming on board, that we're going to do roll call. Then we're going to take public comment, and this is to speak to any item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of this committee. Then item 3 is to approve our consent calendar and any changes to the agenda. And on item 3 will be item 7, which is the bylaws and our committee meeting schedule, and item 8, which is the minutes. And then we're going to do very brief introductions of everybody on the phone. So everybody's going to just say their name and their organization. The big bunch of the focus of our meeting is really going to be item 5. And I want to apologize. I know we've sent the slides out a little bit late, in part because we were waiting to receive slides from all the participants and didn't want it to be confusing for people as we sent so many different items to you. And then item 6 is going to be to discuss the hate crimes task force draft work plan. And then we will adjourn this meeting. We have it scheduled till 3, and the reason for that is that we have a lot of presenters, and we want to make sure there's enough time for discussion. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. Michelle, I'm going to take comments after we do roll call.
Access check. I need somebody to check on the live stream, the stream feed, the captions.
Closed caption. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask staff to do that first. Thanks, Michelle. And I don't know if that's Zach or Jess. That
I
can
have someone from our office in contact with the captioners. So we are working on that.
So Jess, do you have an ETA on that?
I don't, but I can work on getting one.
Thank you.
We can also turn on the automated captioning, which while we're working on the live captioner. I'm waiting for a response right now.
That would at least be helpful. This is Michelle, so thank you.
Michelle, this is the deputy clerk. On the bottom right of your screen, if you could turn, you got it? Perfect, thank you.
And so we'll do a quick test. Michelle, is my voice being captioned for you? Great, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's working on mine too. So that's the live, that's the live transcript. Is that with a live person, or is that the
It's an automated, it's an artificial intelligence. This is Michelle again. It's an artificial intelligence that Zoom has now incorporated into their program. It's typically not as accurate as a live captioner, but it's sufficient for my needs anyways.
Thanks,
Great.
Michelle.
And Jim Weston from our office is in contact with the live captioners. We don't have an ETA, but that is still in progress.
Okay. And let's, if you could, put
Excuse
in
me. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I don't know who's speaking. Maya?
This is Maya. Sorry. Can Assistant Chief Joseph be moved to a participant or panelist? Thank you.
Yes. So to go back to the closed captioning, I was going to ask staff if you could please notify Kathy in my office with the ETA when we have the ETA for the person.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so let's begin with our roll call.
Good afternoon. Co-chairperson Chavez.
Here.
Co-chairperson Esparza.
Here.
Member Boyarsky.
Here.
Member Zayner. Member Zayner, absent. Member Lori Smith.
Present.
Member O'Neill.
Present.
Member Jeff Smith. Member Jeff Smith, absent. Member Narayan.
Present.
Member No.
Present.
Member Paul.
I think that's for me. Here.
Thank you. Member Dewan.
Present.
Member Armeline. Member absent. Member Appel.
Here.
Member Yeager.
Here.
Member Estremera.
Present.
Member Eldon.
Here.
Thank you. And Member Conda.
Here.
You have a quorum.
So Jill, I'm sorry that I'm having a little difficult time hearing you. I'm presuming we have a quorum.
Sorry about that. Yes, ma'am, we do have a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll now go to public comment, and this is an opportunity to speak to an item that is not on the agenda, but within the purview of the committee, and each speaker will get 2 minutes.
Perfect. Our first speaker is Scott Largent. I am unmuting you. Please accept the unmute. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. The timer will start when you begin speaking.
Good afternoon, everyone. Scott Largent. Please give me a little rope here. I'm trying to stay in my lane, but I am learning new things. So I decided to go on the Department of Justice's website and really determine what a hate crime is and what the California Penal Code, of course, 422.55. And it basically said, you know, it kind of outlines some things as far as number 1 being a disability, number 2, gender, 3, nationality, 4, race or ethnicity, 5, sexual orientation, and 6, association with a person or group with one or more of these actual perceived characteristics. Now, the reason for my comments today is there's a group of people, of course, that are disabled. They're the people in our community that really have it bad. And I truly believe they are being discriminated against. And I believe these are hate crimes. And these are not just hate crimes from the public. They're also hate crimes from people internal in the system. As far as the public, what I have personally experienced is anything from broken windows to anything, you know, graffiti, people lighting fires, dumping couches, furniture, all this stuff in front of a homeless person's RV. I think these are all just basically to target these poor people in our community that are disabled. And I would hope people would kind of acknowledge that also. I get what's going on here. And then internally in our system, why does our system hate the homeless and mentally ill so much? I don't understand that. I truly believe that a lot of you people hate the homeless. I know that sounds weird. If you didn't, you'd be helping them more. And real quick in my last 10 seconds, the fire department, the San Jose Fire Department, they hate the homeless. They take their sweet time when their stuff's on fire. 1 hose, 7 trucks, unacceptable.
That concludes our speakers.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to Kathy. I just want to make sure, was everybody able to access the materials for the meeting? Everybody okay? Does Kathy need to do a one-on-one for everybody? You're good? Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure people saw all their materials. What we're going to do now is we're going to go to our consent calendar. This is item 7, our bylaws and our meeting schedule and the minutes of our February 26th meeting. So I would like to see if I could get a motion for approval of the consent calendar. I need one of the
Move approval.
Thanks, Maya. And I need a second from one of the voting board members.
I'll second.
Thank you. And I got a second from Richard Conda. Any discussion on those items? Seeing no hands, I'm going to ask for a roll call vote.
Co-chairperson Chavez.
Yes.
Co-chairperson Esparza.
Yes.
Member Boyarsky.
Yes.
Member Zayner. Member Lori Smith.
Yes.
Member O'Neill.
Yes.
Member Narayan.
Yes.
Member No.
Yes.
Member Joseph.
Yes.
Member Dewan.
Yes.
Member Appel.
Yes. Excuse me, yes.
Member Yeager.
Yes.
Member Estremera.
Yes.
Member Elganaidi. Member Conda.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We're going to move on to item 4, and this is introduction from all of our members of the task force. So we're going to do this in 10 seconds or less, and Maya and I are going to model it for you. And this is really just so everybody knows who's on the Zoom. And I just want to appreciate just the incredible leaders that have joined us today. And and in particular, we have a couple of new members too, Reverend Alicia Partee and Dr. Virginia Jones, which I'm very, very excited to welcome them. So to begin, my name is Cindy Chavez. I'm a member of the Board of Supervisors. And I'll go to Maya.
Maya Esparza, represent District 7 on the San Jose City Council.
Michelle.
Michelle Mashburn. I'm the director of San Jose Peace and Justice Center and representing disabled communities.
Oui.
Hi, Hui Tran for the Vietnamese American Roundtable.
Jay.
Hi, Jay Boyarsky. I'm the Chief Assistant District Attorney, which means I'm the number 2 in the District Attorney's office.
Martin.
Good afternoon, Martin Shell. I'm Vice President and Chief External Relations Officer at Stanford University.
Richard.
Richard Conda, Executive Director, Asian Law Alliance.
Rabbi Erner.
Melanie Aaron, I'm a retired rabbi from Congregation Shir Hadash and speaking for the Jewish community.
Dr. Jones.
Good afternoon. My name is Virginia Jones, and I'm a founder and CEO of Aruhu Justice Counseling and Consulting Center, which is a private practice that specializes in mental health challenges.
Dr. Dewan.
Hi, I'm Marianne Dewan, Santa Clara County Superintendent of Schools, representing education.
Thank you. Maha.
My name is Maha El-Junaidi, and I am the founder and Chief Innovation Officer of ING. And we do education about Muslims and their faith in religious pluralism and in cultural pluralism.
Thank you. Nikki.
Hi, everyone. Nikki Singh, Policy and Advocacy Manager with the Sikh Coalition. We're the nation's largest Sikh civil rights and advocacy organization.
Susan.
My name is Susan Hayasa. I'm with San Jose Nikkei Resistors, a Japanese American community organization.
Adriana.
Adriana Caldera, Interim CEO, YWCA Golden Gate, Silicon Valley.
Kira.
Sarah Fernando, she, her pronouns, Human Rights Campaign Foundation.
Thank you. Kira.
Kira Kazanza, Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits.
Thank you. Chief No.
Hi, Fawn No, Chief of the Sunnyvale Department of Public Safety. I'm also currently the President of the Santa Clara County Police Chiefs Association.
Anna. Anna DePello.
Oh, hi. Yes, Anna DePello Garcia, Inclusion, Diversity, Health, Equity Leader at Stanford Healthcare and founder and president of Lean In Latinas.
Thank you. Sarita?
Sarita Kohli, I'm CEO of AKI, Asian Americans for Community Involvement.
Greg? Greg, you're on mute.
Greg here. I'm the civil rights advocate at the Arc of California.
Thank you. Raimundo?
Raimundo Armendariz, Director at CARAS Community Agency for Resources, Advocacy, and Services, representing the Latino community in South Santa Clara County.
Carrie?
Carrie Duncan, representing Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren, District 19.
Mikhail?
Good afternoon, Micael Estremera. I'm with La Raza Lawyers Association.
Ruth? Ruth, you're on mute.
Ruth Silvertobe, supervising attorney at the Catherine and George Alexander Community Law Center.
Kelsey?
I'm Kelsey Ichikawa. I'm also here with San Jose Nikkei Resistors. I co-lead the Reimagining Public Safety Subcommittee.
Paul?
Hi, I'm Paul Joseph. I'm the Assistant Chief of Police at San Jose PD.
Mauricio?
Hello, everyone. Mauricio Palma. I'm Director of Community Building at Silicon Valley Community Foundation. It's good to be here.
Leland?
Lee Campbell, Associate Director of Restorative Justice for the Diocese of San Jose.
Thank you. Milan?
Milan Ballantyne, Executive Director of the African American Community Service Agency.
Ken?
Ken Yeager, former colleague of Supervisor Chavez on the Board of Supervisors and now Executive Director of the BMEC Community Foundation, which is an LGBTQ nonprofit based in Santa Clara County.
Nancy?
Hi, Nancy Appel, and I am a Senior Associate Regional Director for the Northern California Office of the Anti-Defamation League. And I also serve as Legislative Director to coordinate our advocacy efforts in Sacramento for the 5 ADL California offices.
Thank you. Mayor Gonzalez?
Good afternoon, Ron Gonzalez, President and CEO of the Hispanic Foundation of Silicon Valley.
Kavita?
Good afternoon, Kavita Narayan. I'm an Assistant County Counsel, and I'm here both as a member of the group and as the assigned legal counsel.
Thank you. Lori? Sheriff Smith?
Lori Smith, I'm Sheriff Santa Clara County.
Molly?
Good afternoon. I'm Molly O'Neill, the Chief Public Defender for Santa Clara County.
Reverend Partee?
Alicia Partee, Executive Pastor at Maranatha Christian Center and mental health professional.
Reverend Sakamoto?
Gerald Sakamoto, San Jose Buddhist Temple.
Sonia?
Sonia Tetnowski, the CEO of the Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley.
Pastor Williams?
Pastor Tony Williams, founder of and founding pastor of Maranatha Christian Center, chairman of Faith-Based Reentry Centers for Santa Clara County, and founder of Maranatha Outreach Center.
Chief Mata?
Anthony Mata, Chief of Police here at San Jose.
Jeffrey?
Good afternoon, Jeffrey Wang, Civil Rights Attorney at the Council on American Islamic Relations, San Francisco Bay Area office.
Samina?
I'm Asmina Usman. I'm the Senior Government Relations Coordinator for the Council on American Islamic Relations.
Thank you. Simone?
Simone Chen, representative for Congressman Ro Khanna, District 17.
Thank you. William? Armeline?
Hi, I'm Will Armeline. I'm the Criminal Justice Chair for NAACP of San Jose and Silicon Valley and Director of San Jose State Human Rights Institute.
Thank you. Ahmad?
Good afternoon, Ahmad Thomas, CEO of Silicon Valley Leadership Group.
Dolores?
Good afternoon, Dolores Morales, President of SEMA, County Employees Management Association.
Great, welcome. Did I get everybody? Yep.
This is Kathleen Wong Lau, Chief Diversity Officer of San Jose State University.
Welcome.
I'm
calling in on a phone Zoom, so maybe not showing up the same way.
Oh, I apologize for that. Anybody else?
I'm here. I'm a representative of the Azerbaijan Cultural Society of Northern California, and I'm here to represent the Azerbaijani community in the Bay Area.
Great, thank you. Did I get everybody else? All right, so let me just say that we have a number of guests that are with us today that were also introduced, and I really appreciate all of you being here. And one thing I'll just let you know is that there will be on an ongoing basis updates as we find new people that maybe we left out. You give us feedback about a group that we should include. I will say that because of the high interest from my own colleagues on the Board of Supervisors, we will be adding an advisory board member with Supervisor Otto Lee. And I know that Councilmember Esparza will be looking to also add some colleagues just because there's a lot of interest and people really want to participate. We've also gotten requests from other organizations who are looking to see whether or not they can fold their local efforts into this bigger regional effort, and we'll keep our eyes open for opportunities to do that. So with that, we're going to move on. Now, let me just talk about this item. This is item 5, and this is really the biggest part of our meeting. And so what I'm going to do is just, we asked as part of our really just better understanding the impacts of the community for our for this item, for recommendations from impacted communities to be able to talk about their experience with hate crimes, hate incidents, programming, and community safety. And what's significant about this is that this is, and I apologize to everybody, this is going to be a little bit of speed understanding. And the reason for that is we've asked everybody if they could do slides. We're giving everybody 3 minutes. We're going to have about an hour's worth of presentation, and then I want to open it up for discussion. So if you're not speaking, I'm going to remind folks to keep your mute button on and just write your questions or comments if you have them. When we get to the question answer period time, I'm going to ask people if you can use your blue hands. If you don't know how to do that, no problem, wave wildly, I will find you, because we want this to be get as much information from folks as we can. Just to make a little correction to the agenda, since the agenda item was published, there have been some changes. And item 5G should say receiving report and recommendations from the ARC of California instead of California Foundation for the Independent Living Centers relating to bias motivated incidents against people with disabilities. Item 5J should read receive report and recommendations from the Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley relating to bias motivated incidents against the American Indian community. Item 5S should be receiving report and recommendations from Chinese for affirmative action relating to the bias of incidents against Chinese Americans. I want to thank all of the organizations here today, and I would again just like to reiterate the process. We have 19 groups that have done amazing work and are here to speak on how their specific communities have been impacted by hate crimes and hate incidents, and to share trends and make recommendations for community safety. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. There will be a 3-minute timer on the screen, and my staff will be sharing slides. So feel free to just say next slide during your presentation. And please be prepared to unmute yourself when we call upon you. And then we'll go to discussion. I know this is kind of a tight timeline, but the reason we're doing this isn't because this will be the only opportunity. It's really just to start to dive in and then make sure we have time for a robust discussion. All right, are there any questions about the process that anyone has? All right, seeing none, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my staff who are to share screen. And what we're going to do is I wanted to start to see if, okay, they're going to start. Okay, so I know you're going to, this is, first of all, I should just say thank you. These are not easy conversations to have. I appreciate all of your willingness to do that. I wanted to turn it over to Councilmember Esparza just to see if she has any initial thoughts as we begin these presentations. And I apologize, I meant to ask you this at the beginning to do part of the welcome, Maya. So I just wanted to check on you there.
No, thank you, Supervisor. I just really want to thank everyone for being here and doing the work, and thank all the groups that prepared all of this information as we begin to study and take testimony. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thanks very much, council member. All right, so what I'd like to do is I'm going to turn it over and we'll begin with the Sikh community, I believe is our first, and I'll ask my staff to support that speaker. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Again, Nikki Singh with the Sikh Coalition. Since we're a national organization, I think I'll just be joining for today. And then we're hoping to have a local Sikh community representative join for future meetings, but I'm happy to be here as a resource moving forward. So the Sikh Coalition, as I mentioned, is the nation's largest Sikh civil rights organization. We work on civil rights concerns facing the Sikh community, including hate crimes, school bullying, employment discrimination, racial profiling, and religious rights issues. I'll start with a brief intro on the Sikh faith. Sikhs have been in the US for over 125 years, and the Sikh community actually first came to California. Some of you may know the oldest Gurdwara, which is a Sikh house of worship, is in Stockton, California. So Sikhs are followers of the Sikh faith, or Sikhi as we call it. It is the fifth largest world religion, originated in South Asia in an area called Punjab, which is North India. Sikhism is an independent faith. It's a distinct and unique religion. And Sikhs believe in the concept of one God, equality, respect for all genders, religions, races, etc. Next slide, please. So these are the 5 articles of faith for the Sikh community. I won't get into the details of all of these for now, but you know, Sikhs maintain a visible identity, and so I think it's important to kind of show that visual. Next slide, please. Probably the most easily identifiable Sikh article of faith is the turban. So 99% of turban people that you see in the US are Sikh. It is a mandatory religious obligation for Sikhs who are practicing. Women can also wear turbans, and then I think also just a helpful visual of kind of you know, what's going on underneath the turban, because I think people tend to have some questions around that. Next slide, please. So Gurdwara is a Sikh house of worship. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of you have either been to a Gurdwara or have seen one. In California alone, I think there are like 70 plus Gurdwaras. Next slide, please. So I want to get into just a little bit specifically some of the challenges that Sikhs face in the US. So hate crimes, school harassment, racial profiling, and discrimination are some of the top. I'll just go into hate crimes briefly. Next slide, please. So California has one of the largest Sikh populations across the US, but according to incident reports and according to FBI data, California didn't report any anti-Sikh hate crimes in 2018 or 2019. But that's not something that aligns with our data or even media reports. So that's something definitely that organizationally we see as a challenge. Next slide, please. These are just a couple of the examples of anti-Sikh hate crimes that we've seen over the past few years. And then only 3 seconds. I'll just briefly go into some of the recommendations, if I could have like 30 more seconds. So not only have we seen attacks on individuals, you can go to the next slide, but also attacks on houses of worship across California. And so you can go to the last slide. Some of our organizational recommendations are to include Sikh community representatives on task forces to facilitate Sikh awareness trainings. We organizationally offer a lot of those trainings. Ensure that local law enforcement has hate crimes policy in place. Language access is really important, translating information into Punjabi, supporting state and federal legislation. So federally, one of the pieces of legislation we're looking at is the No Hate Act. Within California, we're looking at AB 57, which, not to put Greg on the spot, but he's the expert here, so I'm sure he can speak a little bit more on that. But just kind of more interactions with the Sikh community. And then the last slide has my contact info. If anyone's interested, I apologize, I can't stay till the end of the meeting, but like I said, happy to be here as a resource going forward. And I hope none of that was too quick.
I know, I'm sorry. I know this time moves really quickly, and it's because we have 19 presenters. We really want to make sure we can get to everyone. So thank you, Nikki. And I'm going to ask if we could go to the next group. And I think that's I'm not sure who's presenting from that group, so I apologize. This is the San Jose Nikkei Resistors.
Hi, I'll be presenting for this portion. Okay, awesome. Great, so if you can go to the next slide. So just wanted to say, again, I'm Kelsey, and thank you so much to the Hate Crimes Task Force for this opportunity to share what's happening in our communities and provide recommendations. I'm here on behalf of San Jose Nikkei Resistors, which is a grassroots organization in the South Bay area. Next slide, please. So how have Japanese Americans in the South Bay been impacted? The Japantown Community Congress of San Jose and the Japantown Business Association report the occurrences of crimes against vulnerable elderly people who walk to and from the senior center and go shopping in Japantown. Long-standing burglaries and vandalism have also been exacerbated during the pandemic. People with unaddressed mental injuries who are sometimes houseless have been involved in some of these incidents. And while we don't think these are all motivated by anti-Asian sentiments, our people are feeling very vulnerable amid the nationwide uptake in racist incidents. For many, the stress of anticipating an incident causes terror that is cumulative. Additionally, because of the longstanding invisibility of the needs of Asian American students in K-12 schools, many students, parents, and teachers are anxious about school reopenings. Next slide. Ongoing responses to these issues include that the elderly are being encouraged to stay home at all times. Japantown Prepared has started a volunteer community patrol to increase people presence during the hours when seniors are out. Some have looked to Laura's Law to address the crimes committed by people with mental injury or addiction, but this is not a sustainable or systemic solution. For one, the police have been historically unresponsive to calls from Japantown. And moreover, some feel that calling in the police ends up endangering the community. The Santa Clara County Office of Education and some school districts have also passed resolutions condemning the anti-Asian violence. Next slide. So we recommend the following. First, putting adequate funding into counseling, addiction, and medical services in San Jose, accompanied by more funding for stable, long-term housing options. We emphasize the need for decriminalizing the people who need access to these services and avoiding surveillance of the houseless community by police or patrols. Second, providing funding for bystander de-escalation training to members of Japantown worried about their safety and members of the volunteer patrols. And we'd like this to come from groups like Holla Back, not the SJPD. To be clear, we're not asking for more police presence or involvement, especially when we have seen how violently police can respond to those with mental health challenges, for instances with the deaths of Angelo Quinto and Calvin Tran. Third, we suggest concrete support and guidance for teachers, administrators, students, and parents concerned about returning to school, in addition to the resolutions passed by school districts. And fourth, a strong stance against attempts to use anti-Asian hate as a divisive wedge between racial minorities. We need ethnic studies curriculum to give our students a critical understanding of how white supremacy enables structural violence against all people of color. And that's all. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Kelsey. We're going to go to item Group C, and this is the Islamic Networks Group relating to incidents against Muslim community.
Sorry, Supervisor Chavez, this is Kathy. We had a slight shift, so Chinese for Affirmative Action will actually go right before the Islamic Networks Group to meet the executive directors.
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity to present our findings and the work that we are doing. My name is Cynthia Chen. I'm the co-executive director of Chinese for Affirmative Action. And we are one of the founding partners of Stop API Hate. Next slide, please. So we started our reporting center a little over a year ago, and our two other partners are listed there, one based in Southern California, our other here in San Francisco. And we started this reporting center because we started to see news accounts and social media posts of Asian Americans being attacked as COVID was being racialized. We have a reporting center that provides opportunities for community members to report incidents in 11 different Asian languages. Next slide. These are some of the types of incidents that individuals are encountering, everything from refusal of service, discriminatory treatment, to being verbally harassed and assaulted while walking in their neighborhood, and primarily, and some physical attacks, as we saw early on, where children were being beaten or bullied in schools. Next slide. To date, we have close to 3,800 incidents from all across the country, from March 2020 through February 2021. You could see that the largest number of incidents are coming from California, and we have 142 incidents in Santa Clara, and we can go into more of what's happening in the county. A majority of the incidents are actually not hate crimes, which is why we describe it as hate incidents. It doesn't mean that they shouldn't be taken seriously, but it's important, especially when we think about the role of law enforcement. Coming from all parts of the country, and we are seeing that members of the Chinese community are the largest number of respondents, but we also have all Asian groups who are being affected. It's important to note that women are by far the largest number of respondents, as they are being verbally harassed. Misogynistic, racist things are being said to women, and younger women are vulnerable at this time as well. Next slide. I wanted to share with you the types of discrimination and bias that Asian Americans are experiencing. These are actual numbers for Santa Clara. So you could see the trends are very similar to what's happening across the country. And again, while a majority of us are sheltering in place. So parents are very concerned about their children returning to school. Many are afraid to ride public transit. These are things that I think many Asian Americans have voiced concerns around. Next slide. So
Cynthia, I'm going to ask you to do one more, and just because your time's been up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
My
okay.
apologies.
I know it's hard to see here. I apologize. Can you go to the next slide for her? There you go. Oh, no, I'm sorry. But
yeah, I can just wrap up by saying that part of our work that we're engaged in is working with government agencies in terms of developing rapid response that's really rooted in community safety initiatives and that are focused on intervention and preventative measures. And we really feel that it's important to do that within the Asian community, but to also do that across communities. So I'll just end there since I've overrun my time. Thank you.
Thanks, Cynthia. And we have your four-pronged approach up on the screen now. Thank you. So are we, okay, great. The Islamic Network, thank you. And folks, I'm gonna ask that the timer make a sound, not to be rude, but just because I know not everybody can see the timer and their slides. So if the staff could do that, it might be helpful for the speakers.
We can work on that, but it may or may not be possible right now.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and set my own. So thank you, everyone. So I'm presenting on Muslim American communities, and I'm calling this Countering Anti-Muslim Bias and Bigotry. And I want to begin with talking about Islamophobia because it really provides the context for why hate incidences and hate crimes happen against Muslims. And Islamophobia is fear of or bigotry against Muslims and those who are perceived to be Muslim. Muslims are usually portrayed in the following ways: monolithic and static, separate and other, inferior to the West, all of the stereotypes that we're very familiar with as far as Muslims are concerned. And the result, of course, is that the vast majority of Americans have very negative views, not only about Muslims, but also the religion itself. So anyone associated with the religion then becomes pegged as any one of those things. This leads to discrimination. I think it's really important to talk about this factor because it's related to hate incidences. So a poll that was recently done found that 60% of Muslims report religious discrimination compared with these other groups. So we're right up there with the Jewish American community. Muslims are also more likely than other groups to experience religious discrimination in institutional settings, which is alarming, in places like airports, applying for a job, when interacting with law enforcement, when receiving health care. And the ratio, as you can see there, is quite high. Muslim families also, their children experience bullying. This was, the first one is nationwide. And then of course, CARE California has also done polling around this issue for bullying and for students on college campuses. I'm gonna have CARE, which is also speaking, talk a little bit about hate crimes, but I also wanna sort of address the fact that this is quite broad. It affects Muslims in courts. It affects our domestic policies around issues like the ban, surveillance of mosques, racial profiling, and then of course on foreign policy as well. And we also see an increase in anti-Muslim hate groups. The types of hate crimes against Muslims are usually Islamophobic graffiti on mosques, using dogs to intimidate a Muslim, something that's like sort of has happened to me, burning, tearing up or flushing the Quran down a toilet, assaulting women that wear the hijab. Actions are usually accompanied by epithets as well. I'm not going to go through the sampling. The impact, I think we all know what the impact is. Emerging trends, I want to sort of pause here to say that anti-Muslim hate crimes often follow rhetoric by national figures in media and government. A good example of that is what happened after Trump came into office. The rates of hate crimes reached as high as the hate crimes that happened after 9/11. International news about wars the US is involved in the Middle East, international domestic terror attacks and attacks on Muslims, emerging trends, rise in white and ethno-nationalism here and around the world, and of course, hate speech by the right continues. And as far as the recommendations that I'm making are hate crimes training for police officers, require tracking and reporting, conduct training across county and city offices, so you can tell that I'm focusing on prevention programs, promoting education engagement opportunities, promoting ethnic studies in public school education, promoting media, supporting education engagement, and then of course, DEI public policies. Thank you. I'm sorry I went over my time a little bit.
Oh, thank you. These are heavy topics to get to so quickly, so I appreciate it. Thank you. We're now going to go to item D, and this is to receive a report from the Vietnamese American Roundtable.
Good afternoon, everybody. Again, my name is Hui. You're hearing from earlier that Supervisor Lee will be joining us. I do want to share that I'm a part-time staffer for Supervisor Lee, but I appear today in my capacity as a board member for the Vietnamese American Roundtable. I also want to take a quick second to really acknowledge the work of the people who are a part of this panel. The past few weeks have been hard. VAR's been feeling it, and we just want to know we see what everyone's going through, and we recognize it and acknowledge it as well. So if we can go to the next slide, then. The two issues that we're facing in the Vietnamese community is that we are experiencing being targets of racism and violence, and also a lack of data. Next slide, please. We've, in partnership with ICANN, we've held listening sessions to our community to help process what's been going on and the coverage that we've been seeing. And right now, the fear is kind of coming down into two areas. It breaks down into what people, individuals fear, which is for their personal safety, the fear of going out alone and actively restricting their own activities because they don't want to put themselves in danger. And for businesses, they're afraid of vandalism, losing income, and being targeted and stigmatized for the work that they, for the service that they're trying to provide or for where they are. Next slide, please. In partnership with ICANN, we did hold these listening sessions, and because of our separate capacities, we focused on two different populations. ICANN focused on the older participants, older members of our community, and who were primary Vietnamese speakers. And the feedback they got from that listening session was that they did actually ask for more police presence in business centers and business locations and community spaces. They also asked for more infrastructure, things like making sure that we maintain street lights to keep our streets lit. And they also suggested that we need more AAPI ethnic studies so that Asian American communities like the Vietnamese are not stigmatized and not targeted, and we can learn about each other. For VAR's listening sessions, we focused on younger participants, and many of whom were primarily English speakers. They really pushed the community-oriented solutions and in creating healing spaces where we can process and also learn and support each other. And they wanted to build cross-community coalitions so that we can work together to stamp out racism. But in the younger folks definitely did not want more law enforcement as a primary reaction to what's going on. Next slide, please. The second issue we face is the lack of disaggregated data. And this is something that many Asian Americans feel, right, that when we are all lumped together, our individual stories are not told, and that is true for the Vietnamese community as well. Next slide, please. The best example of this actually came this past December, and I do want to recognize, Supervisor Chavez here for her advocacy for disaggregating data. When we disaggregated API data for the first time in December related to COVID-19 information, we actually found out for the first time that the Vietnamese and the Filipino communities were massively impacted by COVID-19 as well. This is a practice that needs to continue and beyond just COVID-19 data. Next slide, please. We're also asking for solidarity. There are actions and we'll be participating in this weekend at noon at City Hall, and one more on Saturday night as well. There's going to be a vigil at Grand Century Mall. Next slide, please. And if you'd like to reach out, please look us up. All of our social media handles are at varoundtable.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Pui. We're now going to go to the Azerbaijani Cultural Society of Northern California.
Thank you. Hi, so yes, I'm a representative of Azerbaijan Cultural Society. We are a nonprofit in the Bay Area, and we have around 6,000 members. In the past year, we have noticed an uptick in hate crimes and hate incidences. This is basically mostly because of a 30-year-old conflict that Azerbaijan and Armenia has had, and it's actually carried over to here, and things got escalated in 2020 because there was more war there, and therefore more attacks and bullying and threatening here. Next slide. So the impact, to give you a picture, 20% of Azerbaijan's international recognized land was occupied by Russian-backed Armenian forces 30 years ago. So this is ongoing. In the past year, we've received hate crimes, such as a few were physically ambushed and beaten on camera also, and injured by extremist groups within the Armenian community. We have also received hate incidents on social media. This is very common. We receive DMs from people, wanting to kill us, which is why I'm not releasing my name right now. And we also get bullied often online, with people insulting us, to saying we're backwards. In fact, one of the incidents was actually taken up by Facebook's oversight board, and they looked at it. Next slide, please. We were vandalized, our center. We received many death calls and death threat calls and emails. And next slide. So our recommendation is that the government officials consult with us when they're considering legislation about Azerbaijan. Most of our representatives here are Armenian, of Armenian descent, and they have caused additional pain. They haven't fixed anything. They publish bills and resolutions, being very biased and support, and in turn help, encouraging the extremist voices in the Armenian community against us. So this is actually very hard for me to say, but most people don't know what's happening to us. So we we just get silenced. We're never consulted. Next page, please. So we would like the police and schools to know about this conflict, to know about Azerbaijan. So when we talk about it, they have some reference. And also, we would love an easy and accessible way for a community to report these hate incidences, because most of it, we don't actually talk about it. We don't think we can talk about it, and that there is a solution to this, because the Armenian community is very strong here. We're not saying everybody is like that, but there is an extremist group, and we see the end of that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Supervisor Chavez, can I just ask a quick question, or should I hold my question until the end?
Please till the end.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'd like the NAACP to join us now.
Hi, so I first want to thank everyone for their reports today, and I want to thank everyone on the task force for all of their hard work and their commitment to these issues. So when we got the request, what I did right away was go back to NAACP and some of our partner organizations, including leadership at Black Kitchen Cabinet and elsewhere, and try to put together just some conversations on what we have been receiving as reports to the NAACP as trends in our community when it comes to hate incidents and hate crimes. And so I'm just going to speak briefly about those broad categories of concern from the community and from those conversations in those reports. I'm going to forego, and I know this is odd for me, the professor, I usually do a bunch of data stuff and all that, so I won't be doing my usual. And the reason I'm doing that is because thankfully, the Black Lives Matter movement has done an excellent job in talking about in great detail how African-American communities have been affected by hate crimes, not just here, but all over the country for several years. And so next slide, please. So I'm just going to really go over some of the trends that we're recognizing as an organization. And these are also found very easily in media reports from the entire Bay Area, not just our own county, over the last 5 to 7 years. So the first is the public display of nooses. Over the last 5+ years, nooses have been reported to our organization and in media, publicly displayed at universities, school campuses, public parks, and so forth. This is a direct reference to lynching and paramilitary violence against primarily African-American and some Latinx communities since the Reconstruction period in the United States. Second, and this is something that really was heightened during the Trump administration, which is public display of the Confederate battle flag and similar sort of hate-related symbols in public. While absolutely protected by First Amendment protections, the increased flying of the Confederate battle flag and other white nationalist symbols in public seemed to increase dramatically during the Trump administration. This has an intimidating effect meant to politically silence members of the African-American community and others. And then lastly, our concerns, ongoing concerns about connections between white nationalism, right-wing extremism, and law enforcement. So organizations like the NAACP were literally founded on fighting the combined violence of law enforcement and white nationalists in cities all over the US. Right-wing extremist organizations exploded in size and number during the Obama administration. I'm happy to share some of the stats, and made their way into the cultural and institutional mainstream under Trump. It's high time that this open infiltration is addressed. Next slide. And then finally, in terms of recommendations, and I'll just say this quickly. So first, keeping data. We agree with many others, and we have a specific suggestion that we commit to an annual hate crime report from all municipal police departments, county sheriff, and corrections. Second, to address the infiltrate, and also, sorry, the support of legislation to do the same, like AB 57 at the state level. Second, addressing the infiltration of law enforcement through supporting statewide legislation like that of the CLEAR Act, but also encouraging compliance with legislation like the CLEAR Act and the vetting of law enforcement officers for membership in violent right-wing extremist organizations. And then finally, and this is perhaps our most creative, fix root problems and grounds for solidarity. So designing and supporting universal economic programs with disproportionately positive effects on communities of color. These serve as a terrain for solidarity across race, ethnicity, documentation status, and so forth, while preventing the inequality and desperation that paves the way for extremist movements and scapegoating. I'll end there for sake of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Will. We're going to go now to the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers.
This is Greg DeShitter, the ARC of California, CFIOC. They're going to be here. Since there's only 3 minutes, I won't go into any detail on what you've heard already about the extreme violence and extensive hate crimes against people with disabilities. I'll just give one statistic based on federal studies just in the last decade that about less than 1/2% of hate crimes against people with disabilities are reported. 1/2%. In California last year, there were 10 only reported, is an extremely low number. Let me go to the next slide, please. That's why we call anti-disability crimes the invisible hate crimes. Now let's get on to the recommendations. Next slide, please. The first one is something that can be done literally today. What time is it? About 1 o'clock. The Sheriff Smith, Chief Ng, Chief Van could do this, begin this afternoon. The State Commission on Peace Officer Standards and Training, POST, and good to see you, Sheriff Smith. She's a member of the POST Commission and can testify about what great work POST does. POST has developed and has online in their learning portal a very good police training course in hate crimes. It is not mandated. Every law enforcement agency could mandate it on their own police officers and announce it in public. That would have the immediate good effect of showing the community, the law enforcement agencies support for them, and showing all law enforcement officers, even those whose training is scheduled for some time in the future, that the law enforcement agencies are serious about hate crimes. They're going to be trained, and we think that would mean that they will start taking it more seriously. Not that they are, some of them aren't now. Well, some of them are now, even in advance of the training. So that's what we would call on all the law enforcement agencies, all chiefs, all sheriffs, to mandate all of their officers be trained using the POST learning portal hate crimes course. Secondly, this goes along with what other testimony you've heard. Every law enforcement agency should have a hate crimes policy which guides officers for better reporting and better response to hate crimes. POST has a very good model for that too. We think that every law enforcement agency should consult its local community and adopt the POST model policy with any additions, any local additions that you deem necessary. Most of you already have, I'm sure every county, every police department and county sheriff's office in your county, there's only one county sheriff's office in your county, of course, has hate crimes policy. Some of you, though, I'm sure use the Lexipol policy. Lexipol, for those who don't know, is a private business that is paid by law enforcement agencies to develop policies for them. About 90% of the law enforcement agencies in California use the Lexipol policy. Lexipol's model hate crimes policy is better than nothing, but it's not nearly as good as the POST model policy. So we would ask that every law enforcement agency consult your local communities that are targeted, take the POST model policy, adopt it with any additions that you may feel necessary to be in your jurisdiction. We would ask that all of you that have statewide organizations consider asking them to get involved in legislation. And I'm particularly thinking about the Sheriff's Association, the Police Chiefs Association. They have traditionally opposed state mandates on what local law enforcement agencies have to do. Of course, no one wants to be told what to do. Of course, law enforcement agencies are already overworked, don't want any more mandates. But I would ask that, particularly of the chiefs and the sheriff here, if you can't get your organizations to support mandates, such as in AB 57, which I'll get to in just a minute, at least try to get them not to oppose them. The lack of opposition, the silence of a law enforcement agency in concerning a mandate legislation in Sacramento can be very strong. So at least please don't oppose it. Going on to legislation, these are bills, make note of the ones, these are the bills that are pending now, some of them anyway. I do want to talk about AB 57 by Mr. Gabriel. This is a good bill as far as, yes?
Could you wrap up with this last bill?
I will. This is a good bill as far as it goes, but we think it doesn't go nearly far enough. It mandates the training that we talked about. That's very good. And it directs the Department of Justice to provide better support to local law enforcement agencies for hate crimes. That's very good. What it doesn't do, and what many civil rights groups, including some of them represented here today, are asking, is that it does not require a hate crimes policy. And so we have proposed that it be amended to require a hate crimes policy to guide officers in great details, in some cases, about how to recognize hate crimes when they see it, because they don't always. We have an audit that shows that. And to respond to them better, including by providing support and directing hate crime victims to community organizations that can provide support. And also by reporting and documenting the non-criminal hate incidents that we talked about, which vastly outnumber the hate crimes, but can lead to hate crimes and are very damaging in themselves. Also, documenting non-criminal hate incidents can be used as evidence against the people who later go on to commit actual hate crimes.
Thank
So
you,
if
Greg.
you are interested in
sorry.
supporting those, write me, I'll get you information about it.
Thank you. I'm now going to go to the Council on Islamic Relations.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey Wang, Civil Rights Attorney at CARE San Francisco Bay Area. CARE is the nation's largest American Muslim civil rights advocacy organization. Thank you for this opportunity to discuss the impact of hate crimes on the local Muslim community today. Next slide, please. To start with a little bit of context, these past few years have shown the dangers of normalizing hate speech. When Trump was running for office, he called for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the US. And after that, we saw a rise in hate incidents against Muslims. Just like last year, we heard Trump's inflammatory rhetoric about China and the coronavirus, and now we're seeing an increase in hate incidents against Asian Americans as well. Unfortunately, hatred and harassment against religious minorities is an ongoing issue, and Islamophobia is an area of concern. The number of anti-Muslim hate groups in the country nearly tripled in 2016. And just last September, a group of Muslims in the Bay Area were subjected to Islamophobic harassment while they were praying outdoors in a park. Now, to put it frankly, people are worried. Given the rise in intolerance and violence against houses of worship, people are concerned about whether they can openly practice their faith safely and securely. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, law enforcement hate crime statistics can be unreliable because we know that people from immigrant or marginalized communities are often reluctant to contact law enforcement out of fear or distrust, or because they might not know how to report because they're unfamiliar with language or the laws. That said, according to the FBI, hate crimes rose in 2019 to the highest level recorded since 2008, and Muslims were the second largest target of religious hate incidents. As it pertains to local anti-Muslim hate incidents or potential hate crimes, the number of complaints our office received in the past 2 years has remained relatively constant. Next slide, please. Turning to recommendations. First, we urge public officials and community leaders to call out bigotry and hate because it's imperative that we do not let intolerance become normalized. Now, increasing community safety requires a multi-pronged approach. We need to invest in communities by providing mental health and crisis intervention resources. Public school education should have a robust ethnic studies curriculum that promotes multicultural understanding and addresses structural racism. And we also need to empower and educate impacted communities because ultimately, accurate reporting is the only way to get accurate data that we need to understand this issue. And to that end, we need to remove obstacles to reporting hate incidents or hate crimes by making sure that there is language accessible outreach so that victims know what their rights are and where they can turn for help. And we also need to provide a mechanism for reporting that's separate from law enforcement. However, should victims turn to law enforcement to report hate incidents or hate crimes, it's critical that they can do so safely without having to fear becoming victims of police brutality or fear potential immigration consequences. And finally, just to wrap up, when hate crimes or hate incidents are reported to law enforcement, there needs to be robust investigations and vigorous prosecution. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to move on to the Indian Health Center. Sonia?
Good afternoon. It's an honor to be with you today. I'm Sonia Tetnowski, CEO of the Indian Health Center of Santa Clara Valley. Next slide, please. While hate crime problems have moved up in the political agenda for policymakers at every level of government in recent years, this is hardly new. From Romans' prosecution of Christians to Nazis' final solution for the Jewish community to the ethnic cleansing of Bosnia and genocide in Rwanda. Hate crimes have shaped and sometimes defined world history. In the United States, racial and religious bias largely have inspired most hate crimes. As Europeans began to colonize the New World in the 16th and 17th century, American Indians increasingly became the targets of biasly motivated intimidation and violence. Next slide. Hate crimes or bias-motivated crimes are defined as offenses motivated by hatred against a victim based on race, religion, sexual orientation, handicap, ethnicity, or national origin. While such a definition may make identifying hate crimes seem like a simple task, criminal acts motivated by bias can easily be confused with forms of expression protected by the US Constitution, which people have tried to use this protection as a shield to protect them from prosecution. Next slide. A hate crime victimizes not only the immediate target, but every member of the group that target represents. A bias-motivated offense can cause a broad rippling discomfort among members of a target community, and a violent hate crime can act like a virus, quickly spreading feelings of fear and loathing across an entire community. Apart from psychological impacts, violent hate crimes can create tides of retaliation and counter-retaliation. Therefore, criminal acts motivated by bias may carry far more weight than other types of criminal acts. As you can see, that this type of passive pressure continues to have the rippling impact on our community. Passive messages seem to be the approach right now. We have seen paint on our walkways into our buildings on both the front and the back. We have had white power forever, white rules, and a variety of other statements on the front of our buildings and on our sidewalks. I've had garbage thrown at my office door with WP written on the door. And I've had other acts of intimidation trying to get us to feel intimidated by these groups. Next slide. I'm asking each member of our community to speak out. Do not remain silent. Report what you see, as people will be surprised by who is doing this to our communities. In closing, I ask policymakers to collect accurate data, address and investigate these passive crimes, de-escalation training for all public service staff, identify bias during hiring process, report prosecution rates to the public. Hate crime awareness and ethnic diversity curriculum, K through 12, will help provide support to our young people. Identify, record, and act. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today and the opportunity to participate on this task force. Click O. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. We're going to go next to the hub.
As our communities race to end the pandemic of COVID-19, we are walking into another pandemic, a pandemic that each of us can end right now by strengthening our similarities and stop dwelling on our differences. We have been living among the virus of hate in America for generations, and it has turned into a pandemic once again. The pandemic of hate is invading our communities more and more each day. This virus is forcing people to stay inside of their homes. People are afraid of going outside and being attacked without any justifications, just for the simple fact of being outside. Defenseless elders have been hit the hardest with COVID-19, and now with the hate virus, especially Asian communities. The virus created by the lack of camaraderie in our society has made everyone sick, and just like with COVID-19, we need a vaccine to stop the virus of hate. Next slide, please. The vaccine is realizing that we are all one race, the human race. Americans have different skin colors, we speak different languages, and have many different cultures and backgrounds. Americans can have ancestors from India, Mexico, Italy, Brazil, Asia, or Ecuador. America is special. But you know what makes us special? Our different cultures mix together to make a new American culture. Being American means that I can go eat tacos for lunch and eat pho for dinner. We are all Americans. We must take the next step into our evolution as humans and realize that we are one race, the human race. We must treat each other with respect, dignity, and take care of each other, because that is the only way that we can stop any systemic or societal problems that constantly puts us against each other. As the family coming together as one race, as the human race, is a vaccine for a hate, virus, and violence we have been living in America for generations. As foster youth, we have a community that is rich in ethnic diversity. We strive to maintain the resilience needed to defeat the odds and show the community what we are capable of. Our goal is to become what most people don't expect us to become. We have our own community that has multiple levels of cohesion. We understand the feelings behind our experiences in foster care and in our own racial identities. At the Hub, the one place where we can come together and lift each other up, the Youth Leadership Committee is working on creating a new group called the Melting Pot. The Melting Pot is designed for all Americans to be educated about each other's cultures, build bridges within the different societal and systemic cultures to bring together and benefit the human race. With a community from different cultures, our goal is to make the Melting Pot a safe place for all. As embracers of our similarities and believers of our people's unity, we invite the leaders of our communities to invest in project developers that can help the Melting Pot and other projects as such come to life. We cannot fight the hate virus separately. We must fight it by developing programs that are meant to create a better community for all Americans as one race. Next slide. Thank you.
Nayeli, great job.
Thank you.
The leaders of our hub. All right, I'm now going to the Human Rights Campaign.
Hi, folks. I just want to acknowledge the pain and the trauma while presenting these recommendations. As a trans woman of color, I see your bravery and respect your courage. To me, all of you are leaders in this space. My name is Sarah. I'll be presenting on anti-transgender discrimination and violence on behalf of the Human Rights Campaign. Next slide. A 2020 study conducted by the Center of American Progress as part of our Transgender Justice Initiative shows that transgender people continue to face discrimination and marginalization in society. Results show that around 62% of transgender people experienced discrimination in the last year. More than a quarter of transgender people say they have endured significant psychological harm due to such discrimination. 50% of transgender people have experienced discrimination in public spaces, and 2/3 of transgender people changed the way they dressed and their mannerisms to avoid discrimination. Next slide, please. When we look at the intersection of race equity, in the US Transgender Survey conducted in 2015, a report on the experience of Black respondents, 61% of Black trans people experienced mistreatment by law enforcement compared to their trans counterparts, which is 58%. 53% of Black people or Black trans people were sexually assaulted in their lifetime, compared to 47% of all trans respondents, and 67% of Black trans people feel uncomfortable asking the police for help compared to 57% of their trans respondents or trans counterparts. Next slide, please. Within the past year, around 44 transgender people, trans and gender non-conforming people, fell victim to anti-trans violence in 2020, 24 of which were Black transgender women, or Black trans lives, sorry. These victims were killed by acquaintances, partners, strangers, some of who have been arrested, charged, while others have yet to be identified. Some of the cases involve clear anti-trans bias, and some of those include things such as employment, poverty, homelessness, and survival sex works. One of those victims was Kimberly Susan Fial, a woman of transgender experience who was murdered at Grace Baptist Church last November. 11 transgender and gender nonconforming people fell victim to the anti-trans violence this year alone. 6 are Black transgender women, and around 84 pieces of anti-transgender bills are under consideration in state legislature throughout the nation. Next slide, please. So as for our recommendations, we want to make sure that folks reaffirm their commitment to serving trans and LGBTQ people in the communities and organizations that you serve. increase community public safety by eliminating the stigma against transgender and gender nonconforming people, support laws and policies that prohibit discrimination based on gender identity, increase the capacity of trans-focused and trans-less organizations, and build communities, inclusive communities in education, the workforce, healthcare, and other parts of society. And last, economically empower, uplift, and humanize the lives of Black and brown transgender people. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go to the YWCA of Golden Gate, Silicon Valley.
Slide, please. So YWCA Golden Gate, Silicon Valley is on a mission to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, and freedom and dignity for all. Programming currently crosses 4 different counties across Bay Area, and the work within Santa Clara County specifically focuses on working with survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, as well as childcare, counseling and therapy services, and a continuum of housing. Next slide, please. Go ahead and move to the next slide, just in the interest of time. So we took a look at data collection that we're currently doing right now in the areas of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, as well as our counseling and therapy services. We are tracking the different types of victimization that an individual may experience at any given point in their lives. What we see often is that survivors often have multiple victimizations that are co-occurring at one time. For instance, we may see individuals who have experienced sexual assault who have also experienced a hate crime. And when we looked back at our data collection over the past calendar year, we saw that less than 1% of our cases indicated that there was a hate crime victimization that overlapped with another area of services that we provide around domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. To give larger context, we generally serve about 2,500 survivors of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking in a given year. And 85% of the individuals that we work with across our organization identify as Black, Indigenous, or people of color. Next slide, please. What we've seen anecdotally, as far as incidents that have been reported to our organization, we saw a 3% increase over the past calendar year. So in our collection of incident reports, we had more staff and volunteers and community members, as well as clients, reveal that they had experienced some form of hate crime or hate incident. For example, we had a client who experienced hate speech thrown at them in relation to COVID-19. And we had several members of our Latinx community who were clients talked about experiences of people telling them to go home or rhetoric along those lines. When we looked at our crisis calls that are coming in, we saw that a few hate crimes had been mentioned by survivors, and we've also seen publicly a recent sexual assault case that also intersect with hate crime. Next slide, please. So some recommendations, looking at community stakeholders having better understanding of existing policies and practices to address hate crimes. We see there's opportunity around the creation of a community-wide public awareness campaign with a specific commitment to eliminating hate. We see that as an opportunity to also engage a youth component and a possibility to partner with schools and universities in the community to learn from their unique experiences in developing solutions to hate crimes. We recommend strengthening data collection and reporting and analysis, just knowing it takes funding oftentimes to strengthen data collection systems. So just putting that there as an opportunity to be able to better fund organizations that are doing this work and to be able to have a better idea of what we're experiencing in our community. And we also see this as an opportunity to deepen dialogue with communities to identify system gaps. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to go to Congregation Shir Hadash.
Thank you very much. It somehow is always timely when we have these meetings, and unfortunately that's the case this week as well. Last time I spoke several months ago, I talked about some statistics, the unfortunate rise in religious hate attacks, and particularly attacks against Jews. Let's go on to the next slide. I'd like to focus in a couple of areas. One deals with our youth. We did a survey of our middle school and high school students, And we found that when asked, 81% said they had never or rarely been teased or made fun of for being Jewish. But when we gave them a list of specific acts, the story was very different. 1 in 4 had swastikas on their desks or lockers or pennies thrown at them. 2 in 5 had had somebody make a negative or inaccurate comment about Jews. About the same number had also experienced jokes or stereotypical remarks about Jewish appearance or custom. And 1 in 10 had had their teachers promoting their own religious beliefs on the students. I think that tells us the importance of focusing on our youth, realizing the inadequacy of reports on health crimes, because there are many reasons why hate crimes or hate incidents are not reported, the importance of taking the pulse of a community, and also the importance of ethnic studies. I'd like to give credit where credit is due. We did have a swastika graffiti incident at a synagogue in Morgan Hill, and that community really appreciated the supportive response from law enforcement. There are a lot of these kinds of incidents. They're hard to sort out. Earlier this fall, a Jewish, lesbian, Latina couple had a sign on their home in Willow Glen. In tiny print, it identified it as coming from a Jewish organization. I don't remember whether it was Fighting Tyrants Since Pharaoh or All Are Welcome Here, but that elicited someone to come banging on their door, kicking at their door, saying that they were going to go to hell. Moving along, we are in a time of change, I know, for the San Jose Police Department, but we don't want to lose sight of some issues in past history. Members of the police union and the sheriff's deputy union have been found to have attitudes manifest in behavior, racist, anti-immigrant, anti-Asian, anti-Semitic, and we worry about these being tied to the lack of immunization found in the police department, which is very different than the fire department. Wonder about this endangering not only those in custody, but being indicative of attitudes. And on to the last slide. This is something I feel we need to address as Silicon Valley. Social media remains an important place where we find hate, racism, misogyny, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, where it spreads, where it brings in new supporters. We need to be doing more about this, and there are ways to do that while still protecting free speech. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We're going to go to our next group, Maranatha Christian Center.
Hello, this is Pastor Tony Williams. Sorry, no slides today. I had a unforeseen medical procedure, and so I'm just going to kind of talk from my heart. African-American community has been dealing with hate crimes for over 400 years, from lynchings to church bombings, and we don't want it to be common for our community. Oftentimes we face hate from both sides, two sides. Angry people, that's racist and bigotry, and also, unfortunately, law enforcement, both historically and recently. In San Jose, we have 3 more times reported hate crimes than the next ethnic group. I've experienced it, my kids have experienced it, hate speech for that, and also my grandkids as well. And we have to create an environment where people aren't targeted for the color of their skin, blaming a race of people for their problems. We need to deal with the environment that shapes that behavior. I've experienced it in San Francisco, lived in San Diego, Los Angeles, and now back here in San Jose. The change that has to take place has to come from our thinking, our heads. It has to come from our hearts. That's a spiritual thing. And also in real practice. We have to live up to the values of this nation. And we must continue to protest, but policy is indeed required. We got to bring an end to systematic culture and attitude of hate, bigotry, and racism. And going forward, we need open, honest dialogue, admission of culpability, acceptance of responsibility, and make it a high cost, increase the penalties for hate crime, and then enforce it. When we rise up and stand together, we cast a pretty large shadow as we have this morning. But until we see each other as equals, the hate is going to continue. And so we got to listen to people's stories without arguing with them, listen to the hurt and pain, relate to others and learn what it's like to walk in their shoes, and know the toll that it takes on the victims of hate crime, their families, psychologically, emotionally, and culturally. Our community is very familiar with hate crimes, and we don't want it to become passé or, oh yeah, you know, that's been going on. And sure, we don't want it to become that. We want the focus to be, let's stop this and let's come together and stop this. Someone already said it. There's only one race, and that's the human race. And when we come together, as I said, we cast a pretty big shadow that can cover all of these issues that have been aforementioned today. Thank you for the time, Cindy, and thank you for the time, Commission. Blessings on you.
Thank you, Pastor. We're going to move to the Diocese of San Jose. Not sure if that's perhaps Lee that's presenting. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
I'm Lee Campbell, Associate Director of Restorative Justice for the Diocese of San Jose. And I want to thank you for the invitation to be a part of the Hate Crime Task Advisory Group. Our Catholic community is a multicultural community, and we come from all walks of life as well. We as Christians like to get along with each other, except occasionally when we disagree, which are usually minor hindrances. Recently, the newspapers and media outlets are covering many stories of Asians being a target of violence. In our Catholic Vietnamese community, we have experienced violence that ended up in murder. A local priest's sister was targeted, followed, attacked, robbed, and murdered here in San Jose. She was a loving wife, a mother, and a sister. This was a tragedy to her family and to our community. A local parish in San Jose was vandalized and property destroyed inside and outside the church, senseless act of destruction. We recognize that Jesus was also a victim of violence who identified himself as a foreigner, a stranger. In Matthew 25, 35 through 36, Jesus says, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. A stranger and you welcomed me. Naked and you clothed me. Ill and you cared for me. In prison you visited me." This is how our faith tradition calls us to act. Restorative justice takes all these things into account and searches for ways to find healing for all involved. A good example of this is the response of the community in Japantown here in San Jose, where private citizens have initiated the Citizen Foot Patrol in hopes of preventing future attacks on Asian residents. Bishop Cantu is preparing a statement for Holy Week, which is next week. April is Asian Awareness Month. My office is planning a prayer service on April 20th because that is a National Violent Crime Week. For any information on that, you can go to the dsj.org. Also, the Catholic community stands against violence to anyone. Every human being has equal worth in the Catholic Church. And I liked what Tony had said previous to me, is our thinking has to change. We have to be able to reach out to all involved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll now go to the San Jose Buddhist Church, Beth Swan. And is that, who's presenting?
It's me.
Oh.
Reverend Sakamoto.
Great, there you go, Jerry.
Thank you. So this is just a kind of a brief history of some of the things that have been going on the past couple of years. You can see that the Buddhist temples, really across the country have had experienced vandalism, destruction of property, incidents of hate crimes. Recently, in the past few years, the San Jose Beijing, our church, has experienced a bomb threat on a major Sunday morning. We've had a fist-sized rock thrown through our window. And also the Japanese community was incarcerated, and Buddhist priests were segregated from the main population and then brought back together again. But they were segregated because they were in part considered less because of their beliefs. And so they were set aside from the main population. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. On February the 26th, 2021, a temple, the Higashi Honganji Temple in Los Angeles, was vandalized, causing several tens of thousands of dollars of damage. This was not identified or at least reported as a hate crime, when in fact, when vandalized, when places of religious centers are vandalized, according to the state, apparently, this is to be considered a hate crime first. And this was brought up, this incident was brought up at our National Ministers Association while we were convening at that time. And even at the National Ministers Association, there was discussion of whether or not it was a hate crime. Next slide, please. So, we've experienced hate crimes for a very long time. The enforcement of hate crimes is the end of a long process. We need to think about how we can change the way in which we arrive at these conclusions. Hate crime, the act of hate crime or any act of prejudice is really a lifelong learning. We need to kind of take a look at how we can turn that around. So I would recommend that there needs to be more of involvement in education and awareness. So we must work harder at cultivating an awareness of the value of our shared humanity. Next slide, please. And these are just three kind of organizations within our community that I think does good work and that we can become aware of. Silicon Valley Faces is rooted in the National Conference of Christians and Jews, started in the early 1900s to bridge a gap between that was obvious to many people, and it has kind of evolved into Silicon Valley Faces, working partnerships, works with communities, Elevate People, Sacred Hearts Community Service, works with providing resources to the community. So to be able to bridge the gaps that exist within our communities, hopefully we can spend more time in that area, more energy, more work in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Sakamoto. I think that is our last presentation, if I'm correct, from staff. Kathy?
Yep, you're correct.
All right, thank you. We had two of our presenters that were not able to present today, and we're going to ask them to come back to our next meeting. And one of them is March for Our Lives, and the other is Siren, Services for Immigrant Rights and Education Network. So what I'm going to ask is if the staff can give me a full screen. So that everybody can see everyone.
I believe as a panelist, you can select gallery view.
Thank you. Thank you. I just got it. Thanks. For some reason, I thought that was yours, but thank you very much.
I had to do the same.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up for comments and questions. I'm going to ask folks if you can go ahead and raise your hands if you'd like to make any comments. Actually, before I do that, if I could go to Councilmember Esparza, and in part because we had no one speaking on behalf of the Latino community today, I wanted to start with Maya, sort of wrapping up, her thinking around that, and then Maya, any other comments that you want to make, then I'll go to the group for feedback and thoughts. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate that, and I'll stick to the time as well. I first wanted to acknowledge the hate crime that was charged on an incident this Saturday in Mountain View, and thank all of those that reached out and on that incident. and because we'll have Siren present at a later point, I did want to mention just a couple of things. One is that a little over, 5 years ago now, the former president kicked off a campaign with rhetoric about building a wall and about bad hombres and a whole bunch of other rhetoric. Since then, we've seen an increase, as we learned in the last meeting, between rhetoric and action and violence. And we've seen an increase in violence on Latinos for speaking their language or just existing. And that has real world implications, whether it's Gilroy, whether it's El Paso, but also fear. And I just wanted to acknowledge that there's also economic issues, that during COVID, we've seen Latinos and African Americans in particular have faced sickness, death, and unemployment at much higher rates. And that one of the things that comes out of this is this inequality and fear that exists because of these unreported incidents. I'm from this community. I've been, working in the community really my whole life, because my parents used to take me out, but definitely my adult life. And I've never in my life seen the Latino community too afraid to go to church or too afraid to get food when I know there is no food at home. And we've seen that particularly during COVID. And so I just wanted to bring that up because there are very real world, very tangible impacts to hate speech, hate crimes, and hate incidents. And so I'll leave it at that and look forward to the 2 presentations at the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. And Maya, thank you for those comments. And one of the things, Maya, that you sparked for me is that there were other organizations that were invited that weren't able to join us that we'll make sure we reach out to. But if there are organizations that any of you think we should hear from, just let Kathy know that, and we'll make sure we set some time aside in our next meeting. So just to I know there are a lot of leaders here, and I'm really very interested in getting people's comments and thoughts. And what I would like to do is make sure that if any of you, for some of this is a lot of information to take in. I know you've got the slides in front of you, and my goal is to get questions answered, get more ideas, and then what I'll do is I'll wrap it up with some opportunities for next steps. So I'll begin with Carrie and then go to Raimundo.
Thank you. The Congresswoman wanted to be here today, but unfortunately, due to her schedule, she was unable to join. But she did want me to share this statement with the group. Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, Councilmember Esparza, and members of the Santa Clara County Hate Crimes Task Force for your dedication and work on this important and troubling topic. While the issue of hate crimes is, unfortunately, not new in our country, recent events and the tragic shooting in Georgia continue to highlight the prevalence of hateful acts and the need to do more at all levels of government to prevent them. We have friends, family members, and neighbors who are currently afraid to go about their usual routines. They are choosing to skip their daily walks for fear of their safety. That's unacceptable. Action must be taken on all fronts, and I'm proud to be a part of the Santa Clara County community that has local leaders and partners who are committed to addressing these challenges. The collection of data on the prevalence of and trends involving hate crimes and incidents, including what has already been shared with the task force, helps inform our decisions about how to best combat the rise of hate crimes. In Congress, I have co-sponsored the Hate Crimes Commission Act of 2021, which would create a bipartisan commission to investigate the national rise in hate crimes, its factors, the impacts of underreporting, and what policies could mitigate the trend. This would be a smart first step in ensuring that there is adequate and accurate national reporting of hateful acts of violence. I am also a co-sponsor of the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act, introduced by Representative Grace Meng, to help address the rise of hate crimes and violence targeting Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. This legislation would assign a point person at the U.S. Department of Justice to expedite the review of COVID-19 related hate crimes and provide support for state and local law enforcement agencies in response to these crimes. The bill would also require the federal government to coordinate with local partners to mitigate racially discriminatory language that has been used to describe the pandemic. I have been deeply troubled by the violent and senseless crimes that have plagued our nation and left communities living in fear. America's strength and uniqueness comes from our diversity, and we must do all that we can to prevent hateful, violent incidents from occurring. Please know that I stand strongly against any and all acts of violence, and I will continue to do what I can in Congress in our shared fight against hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Raimundo?
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez. I wanted to piggyback on Councilwoman Espada's comments regarding the Latino community. One of my concerns is that there's been, and I think everybody here is familiar with it, is there's been a rash of hate crimes against street vendors, Latino street vendors across the state, and particularly in Southern California. We recently had a murder in Fresno where a Latino street vendor was murdered. He was killed execution style last week here nearby. And Fresno is a couple hours away, but we do have also a large community of street vendors here in Santa Clara County. We have a lot in San Jose, and down here in South County, street vendors are also very popular, very prevalent in the Latino community. What my concern is that often with undocumented community members and undocumented residents is they don't report these incidents that happen to them. And so I feel like us, as anti-hate crime task force, is that we really should be paying attention. And I'm not sure if there's a way to either fund or at the very least request from some of our organizations, including Caras down here in South County, that maybe we start to reach out to those folks, to reach out to those street vendors and see maybe we can start surveying them or interviewing them and seeing if these situations are happening here. I think that they might be, and they're just going unreported. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention.
Thank you for that idea. That's a really good idea. Are there any other comments or questions or reflections? If there are, this would be a time to wave. If you can't put up your blue hand, I'm looking to see if folks, Maha?
So I had I had an earlier question. I'm not sure whether the Azerbaijan Johnny representative is still there or not, but I just wanted to say that congratulations to you, Supervisor Chavez, and your entire team for putting together what I thought was just an incredible, well done set of presentations. And I think, for me, it was a full display of the broad impact of hate on our residents across ethnic and religious groups and, disability and transgender groups and so forth. And what I noted as a reflection is I saw how these different forms of bigotry are interrelated. For example, as an Arab woman in hijab like myself, who's also Muslim and non-white, I experience the cumulative effects of multiple forms of discrimination, which I noted was a common thread in all of these presentations and how they all intersect. So I was just thinking that all of our recommendations that come out of this task force really have to address hate across diverse groups, not just focused on a few, but all of them. I don't know how to do that, but that was just sort of what I walked away with. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Ruth?
Yes, thank you. I do want to thank everybody who spoke and also Supervisor Chavez for this very important task force and these very important comments. I did want to point out that as was pointed out in the other panels you had in the past, there is the Ralph Civil Rights Act, and the Department of Fair Employment and Housing has jurisdiction over it, and it forbids acts of violence or threats of violence because of a person's gender, race, national origin, gender identity, gender expression, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, disability, medical condition. And some of these that may not rise to the level of criminal acts or something that could be prosecuted could very well be a civil rights violation of the Ralph Act because it's civil, so it's a preponderance of evidence. And I really think that the only way we're going to get action is if people file these claims. I know that Stop AAPI Hate and CARE and other organizations have captured data, but perhaps going to a government agency might be less intimidating than to go to law enforcement. So I just wanted to point that out. And I know the Alexander Law Center does help with that. And we also handle hate crimes and discrimination in the workplace. And we have this advice line through the Office of Labor Standards Enforcement that people can call, and it's got people who speak English, Spanish, Tagalog, Vietnamese, Punjabi, Hindi, and Mandarin. And we do get calls about hate as well.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruth. Ruth is always like moving us to the next level. I totally appreciate it. Mauricio?
Thank you. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right, thank you. I really appreciated all the presenters, and your stories were a wonderful window and a mirror of our collective reality. So,
Mauricio, you might need to lean in a little bit more.
all right, I'm sorry about that. Can you hear
Oh,
me
there you
better
go.
now?
Better.
Okay, good. I was just reflecting on all the recommendations that were presented earlier, and it seems that one particular recommendation that came up over and over and over again under the umbrella of education has to do with ethnic studies curriculum, trainings with DEI, community dialogues, and public awareness. And all of that put together, I think, just help me think of what role my ethnic journalism play in helping us do some of that education in our community, what role the arts and culture, the creative sector play in also helping us do some of that work, and thinking of the way in which we organize ourselves in our community during the census as an example of how social media can also play a role in just doing some of that educating, doing some of that community dialogue, and really raising the public awareness across the region. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mauricio. Michelle?
Thanks. The one thing that resonated with me throughout the presentations was a need for data, and that data not necessarily needing to measure just the criminal elements of things, but including kind of more overarching hate incidences and what we had discussed last time, which was like the macro and the micro level. You know, microaggressions are part of what keep disabled people from engaging fully in society, as well as many other institutional biases that create those barriers. The other thing that I heard that really resonated too was this process of othering. All of these communities are kind of dovetailed as an other status, a foreign status, whether it's due to nationality, race, ability, or anything else. So that othering process is important to get emerged and embedded into the community, to kind of as a caveat of ways to check our own bias before it becomes to the level of hate, you know, and intersects with those other oppressions.
Thank you, Michelle. Raimundo, and then Melanie.
Yes, I wanted to thank Mauricio for bringing up a very important point, was the role of ethnic studies. I think we recently had a petition that was circulated in the community to bring ethnic studies or critical race theory based ethnic studies programs to young people. I think we can't talk about it enough about the role that could play possibly in intervening or preventing a lot of hate crimes. I think that if we can include the role of young people and education of young people on ethnicity and cultural history here in our country, I think that is definitely another piece that needs to be added to our anti-hate crime task force agenda.
Thank you. Melanie?
It's really wonderful to have this great representation of the variety of communities within our county. But I worry a little bit that we're preaching to the choir, that all of us who are here agree on the importance of these educational measures and of the gathering the data and of taking action. And I hope that down the road, this task force can call in business leaders and leaders of the tech community so that they both hear and are called to account. And I really apologize for talking too much about my first slide, but that second slide about social media, I think is very important because it has a profound impact on the community. And we are here in Silicon Valley, and maybe we can be a model for other communities. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anna?
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez, and also thank you to all of the presenters. And I learned more than I thought I knew. And I reflected on the fact that there was probably many folks that hear sound bites, whether it's through the media. But I sort of sat here thinking about where do folks go to really know the impact of these crimes. And I know we also talked a lot about data, underreporting, et cetera. And maybe it's just a lack of knowledge on my part. But as an example, the opportunity that many of us had to access the dashboards for COVID-19 were and where the transmissions were occurring by zip code, et cetera. I felt that that was a learning platform for me to really understand the impact of COVID-19, and sitting here thinking the same thing of where do people go to really understand the impact of these hate crimes by ethnicity, by group. And maybe that does exist, but that would be something that I would share with people in my network. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarita?
Thank you, Supervisor Chavez and Councilmember Esparza. You know, a lot has already been said, but what I would really also emphasize is that disaggregation of data and being able to understand what communities are impacted at what times, and having much more of a community education process, taking it down to schools, to parents, to and doing it in community, also cross-cultural, so that people can share each other's experiences, and to be proactive in watching what's happening in other parts of the Bay Area maybe, and how it can be impacting our communities. You know, yesterday I forwarded something which has been a meme now on social media, which is horrific. You know, groups of young people that are targeting Asian elders. You know, sooner or later, these things sort of spread across the region. And so just being aware of that and proactively doing, making it easier for people to report. You know, at the rally, I remember Assistant DAJ Boyarsky talking about that, and how can we make it widespread everywhere for people to call in to report and not to be afraid of being targeted if they are calling in something.
Thank you, Sarita. Susan? Thank you. I want to thank the co-chairs and also all the presenters. It was so fascinating. And I think there were some commonalities. And one of the things I wanted to emphasize is that I think it would be great to get more support for community-based organizing. There's, I think, a lot of interest in doing that kind of thing. There also, I would like to emphasize there could be some more support for bystander training for community-based organizing. And also there could be support for cross-community bystander training where we could meet each other and we could tell each other about the experiences of our communities, because I think, you know, everybody has emphasized ethnic studies and that is really, really crucial. But I think but by just targeting ethnic studies K through 12, we're missing all the older people who have never had the opportunity to have ethnic studies. And so I think that that's something that really needs to be addressed. Like, so the media needs to address that. And also our community leaders need to figure out how that kind of community education takes place. And we need to get creative, I think, and maybe some of these bystander trainings where people meet each other
in the spirit of doing community organizing, where we can all really relate to the needs of our different communities. I think that might be a really inexpensive but very effective way to make some headway. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Sakamoto?
The idea of other, I think, is something that we really can work with. I think Sonia brought it up earlier. She was very specific about othering. But when we see the other as other and don't see them as ourselves, there's opportunity for a lot of misinformation, misunderstanding. And when that happens, there's fear. And we push them further away. So I think that a way to bring people together, there are a lot of different ways. And I think that adults need that as much as Susan was saying earlier, just saying that the emphasis in education is important, but that coming together as community is also is essential. The religious community has been doing this for many years. Interfaith organizations, interfaith gathering, but it still requires a much broader, more integrated way of bringing people together, of not seeing the other, but as ourselves, as human beings that encounter the same kinds of difficulties as anyone else does. To quote the great master who said, "Fear leads to the dark side." That was your, sorry. Fear leads to anger, anger leads to hatred, hatred leads to suffering. And that's a line that I think is so very true. And it begins with that fear, with not knowing the other. And not that unknown causes us to kind of step back or step away, and can result in a lot of difficulties for ourselves and for others. So
Yeah.
just my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Richard?
I don't know how I followed that, Reverend Sakamoto, but I wanted to lift up the presentation by the San Jose Nikkei resistors. I thought the points they raised were really right on, and I think the feeling within the Japanese American community, there's really the othering thing there. And I also wanted to say, just in terms of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, with the murders in Georgia, things are just really tough for us, and it's hard, it's raw, and I think a lot of us are just still trying to figure out how to deal with it, and I just wanted to share that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maha?
Yeah, I wanted just to amplify what Susan said, and Professor Mauricio, and what Reverend Jerry also talked about, which is prevention programs. And so, Cindy, as I was organizing my thoughts around recommendations, I put them into 3 buckets. We have to have one bucket just be on prevention, which would include education and engagement, the arts, and all sorts of things that have already been mentioned by several people. Another deals with monitoring and reporting. And then another bucket would be response, which is sort of what Richard was just talking about. And so I think it would be really good. I don't know if you already had that in mind or not. You might have, and it may be in a future agenda, but I just see that as monitoring and reporting as one bucket, response, and then prevention programs.
Thank you. That's helpful. It's interesting. I've been kind of struggling a little bit with the big buckets and then how we're going to divide the work, but I have an idea. So thank you for weighing in on that. Sonia?
Sorry, it took me a second to get off mute. Yeah, I appreciate all the presenters, and I too learned a great deal about what's happening in all of our communities and the reality of historical trauma associated with that sense of fear. I appreciated what members of the panel talked about in relationship to that fear of the unknown. And I think the more we can talk about what's happening in our communities and have those cross conversations amongst our variety of communities will help alleviate some of that, and will help to I guess reinforce the fact that we're standing together, we're doing this work together, we're protecting our communities together. It's not just one community or another community. We're all trying to find solutions that can impact across all of our respective areas. And I really like what I'm sorry if I mispronounce it, Maha said right before me about the 3 buckets. I think you'll see in my slides for recommendations, those are pretty much the same recommendations I had as well. I think it's really important. The more we can educate, communicate, and empower our communities to act collectively will help us to address some of these continued traumas our community members are facing. And thank you, Supervisor Chavez, for all the work and the leadership that you've been doing to address this issue in our community. I really appreciate you.
Sonia, I appreciate you too. We've been on a lot of meetings, COVID. Susan?
Thanks. I just wanted to say one more thing or two more things. One, I wanted to really emphasize the call for disaggregation of data. I think especially for Asian Americans, and the Vietnamese Roundtable brought this up, and I think that's a really important point. For Asian Americans, we're constantly fighting the model minority, and data disaggregation is one way to do it and to support our opposition to being characterized as one-dimensional. Also, I want to emphasize and support the suggestion of the NAACP in opposing the infiltration of law enforcement by white supremacists. I think this is a really important thing that as a community we need to deal with. And I think that elected officials are in a good position to take that very seriously. And I think that there's broad support for that. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, let me start by saying I really appreciate everybody's feedback on these. And I know we asked you to do a lot in 3 minutes, and I'm so sorry that that was like a test, but it really was just to get us started, right? To figure out kind of where we could see trends, where we could see sort of collective opportunities. Kathy, why don't I go to you before I get us to next steps?
Hi, I'm so sorry. I've been having Wi-Fi issues, so I apologize for cutting in and out. But I wanted to give feedback. I think the recommendations are really, so insightful, and I wanted to just emphasize some of the things that I think that were brought up overall in terms of themes that I think it's important for this committee to understand. One is, I think a one-size-fits-all remedy is not, it's not and will not have ever worked. I think that there are some overarching themes and frameworks that are really important. One is the historical framing of white supremacy in all of this, not just in hate incidents, but really, what we know from research is if somebody just kind of feels like when they're interviewing somebody that somehow in the back of their mind that a white person is more qualified than everybody else that they see who is a person of color, that is still white supremacy. And I think a lot of times we think that it's disconnected, that our everyday lives are disconnected from the heinous acts that we see. The heinous acts are just indicators of the things that are going on around us in society. So I think that's the commonality. But in terms of understanding our relative experiences, we do need that specificity. So the disaggregation of data, but also the history of how these things happen means that it shows up differently for different communities, and the ability for communities to speak up are also historical. So if you have a model minority myth, it's really hard to speak up. If you are, Muslim and maybe you have not had the national impact in DC in terms of politics, your speaking up are going to be in different avenues compared to Jews or Christians or Catholics and other people. Buddhists and Sikhs and other people don't have that sort of structure. So I think that understanding those details, which I think people present today very well, helps us understand then what we need to do to support communities, right? So is it stronger voice in politics? Is it actually, in other areas in religious organizations, et cetera, et cetera. And then the last thing is structured dialogue. So we know from research that when we facilitate dialogues that people can talk about differences robustly and that they recognize we have a common fate, but that we have distinct differences that have material consequences, if they can hold those things cognitively together simultaneously, then they can work on solutions that have meaning for all sides. And so there's a social science behind it, there's a long practice behind intergroup dialogues. And I know many of our religious communities have been doing that for a while. So I just wanted to say those things. So thank you.
Thanks,
I
Kathy.
appreciate all the presentations and appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Back at you. Ken and then Greg. Ken?
Yes, thank you, Cindy, and thank you to your staff. Trying to organize all of this, we all know took a lot of work, so thank them for all of us. It was a great presentation, and I think all of us learned of issues that were happening in other communities in San Jose that we aren't as familiar with, and so it was great to sort of get that broader education. But certainly the thing that was striking to me, as I'm sure to everybody, that this is a far bigger problem than I think all of us realize. And with that aggregate information, you can see that these numbers of hate crimes collectively are exceedingly high. And it's one thing to sort of focus on each group, which is important. But I think the only way we're going to sort of approach this with any hope of solving is a very massive community education program, sort of just focused on stop the hate and celebrate diversity, and trying to figure out how to do that. The media, as it is today, just doesn't really exist to sort of have those kind of community conversations. But certainly the first thing to do is just to make people aware and to try to get more of the information. And I just want to, thanks Sarah for the great presentation she did on the trans community, but certainly hate crimes against LGBT community, it still remains very high. 1 in 10 people still report being harassed or having violence against them. But all of this is true for all of our minority groups. And as we all begin to figure out how to tackle this, I think I would take an approach that we need to change the whole community standards. And the fact that it's happening here in Santa Clara County and San Jose, which we think as a far more liberal area than other places, where sometimes we're not surprised when there's a hate crime that occurs. I think all of us realize how much work we have to do here.
Thanks, Ken. Those are very thoughtful. Greg and then Pastor Williams.
To talk about people talking about the white supremacist groups. There's a lot of overlap between the different categories of hate crimes. This is true both for the organized hate groups who will go after Black people, Muslims, Jews, and people with disabilities. They're right there on the list of some, as well as other non-hate crime kind of crimes, anti-abortion, anti-homelessness, things like that. Also for the non-mission driven hate crimes, the individual hate, or the individual, not even always hate, but bias of one sort or another, which is what predominates in the disability community, I know, and there's plenty of it also in the community at large, that there's overlap there too, that people of color with disabilities are more likely to be targeted than either people of color without disabilities or people with disabilities who are not of color. So it's important to not, while we try to disaggregate to get the data, it's also important not to segregate it too much.
Thank you. Pastor Williams?
I just thought I'd like to end with a little anecdote that helps me a little better understand what we're dealing with. And that is, I'm not so much sure as we need to be a melting pot, more as we need to be a stew. And when you have a stew, you got meat, potatoes, carrots, onions, and all of that. And when the stew gets cooking, a little bit of the meat swims over and influences the carrot. A little bit of the carrot swims over and influences and flavors a little bit the potato. And the potato jumps on the onion, and you have a beautiful mixture that is delicious. And so a melting pot is gray and dull. A stew is bright and vibrant and something that we all love. And so I just thought that anecdote helped us to better understand it. We're not a melting pot, we're a stew.
Put hot sauce on it too. Don't forget, it's delicious that way.
Thank you both. Pui? And then if there's anybody else who'd like to make a comment on this presentation, this would be the time to put your hand up. Pui?
Yes, thank you. Actually, this is we also want to express our appreciation for being a part of this task force. I mean, one of the calls from our listening sessions with younger folks was the opportunity to work with other communities and work with other organizations so that we can learn from each other, learn about each other, and also, create a united front against these kind of actions. So, definitely hoping that some of this does lead to offline conversations as well, where we can work together on some of these bigger issues. And I just want to say that that delicious description of stew is very appetizing. It makes me want to get some for dinner.
Milan will have the last word.
I just wanted to say on behalf of AACSA, thank you to all of you for sharing your stories and what your communities are experiencing and how we all can band together to eliminate hate. And so working with our leaders to develop policies and legislation on how do we do so. I think always also showing what we have learned consistency from the Girl Scouts. They're always out advocating and putting information out there about educating young girls, but also selling cookies, right? So how do we begin to share these stories and get our kids, young people, to share what they're learning about the various communities at their kitchen tables with their grandparents and people who are passing stories down to them of experiences that they had that sometimes show up in classrooms and now in the virtual world. So I wanted to also share how can we look at models within the education system to make sure that we are, teaching these kids that, when you hear your grandparents say this, how do you have that conversation with them? How do you have the conversation with your peers? And a lot of the youth groups that we are working with, being that all of you are of the different community groups, how do we do that? And so I think I am inspired to see how we can work together to remove hate from our communities, but also how can we inspire the love that I see from all of you, the many different communities represented.
Thank you, Milan. So let me just talk a little bit about next steps. I know that was a lot of information, and I know everybody's sort of processing it. And I really appreciate Maha's buckets. Here's what I would like to recommend. In our next item, we're going to talk a little bit about our work plan. And at our next meeting, what's going to come to the board is some work that Otto Lee is asking our staff to follow up on. And let me just take everybody back a little bit. In 2017, the county hosted 4 hearings. Actually, then Supervisor Cortese, now Senator Cortese, and myself hosted hearings about hate crimes. Was one of the hearings, and the climate overall in our community. One was really focused on women and the impacts of sexual assault and domestic violence. The other was focused on immigrant concerns and immigrant relations at the time. And I can't remember our 4th one off the top of my head, but what came out of those was a whole body of recommendations that the community made about what we could do to address those initiatives. Many of those initiatives were actually adopted. And so as an example, we're funding a great deal of work in partnership with our nonprofit partners around sexual violence and domestic violence. And out of the immigrant hearings, we actually began funding more of our nonprofits that were providing legal support and resources to those organizations. I mean, those are just examples. There's many, many more examples that came out of that. But one thing that I would like to do is bring back the initial report, and we'll send it to all of you, and we'll post it online, because I think it would be interesting to see what was recommended, what we acted on, and what we didn't act on, because some of the ideas you're talking about, maybe we didn't figure out how to do. So that's actually one piece of data. The second is that a number of you have raised really interesting options of ideas that you raised in your recommendations. And one of the things that I think would be really ideal is for us to think about where there are already programs and processes that in other places that we might want to take a look at, best practices that you all know about through your networks that we should consider. And as an example, I thought one of the points relative to what gets adopted at a local level relative to post-training is a really interesting opportunity for us to do a little homework and research on that. But lastly, and let me just say this kind of big picture, there are a number of issues that got raised that I think are very actionable in the short term, and some that are going to be actionable in the medium term, and some that are actionable in a longer term, and some that may require us to take kind of a deeper dive. And one area that may be, and I'm just going to use this as an example, the whole issue about disaggregating data is something that at the county we have been working on for years. It's been very, very difficult. Even in our county that's so progressive and we've got technology, that we're not moving on that quite as quickly as I would like in a number of areas. But we do have some policies around language, interpretation, the disaggregation of data. And what I think would be pretty vital for us is to take a look at some of these areas in a little more detail, allow for some focus group work from all of you, and have those discussions come back to this group with more defined recommendations and or an acceptance that this is a good policy, it needs to be implemented better, you know, so that we start to kind of dive into that. And so what I'm going to recommend is that we will get a subgroup of you to give us feedback on the work groups that we should be looking at. Get some feedback on that. We'll send something out to all of you just asking, are there any working groups that you'd like to be on? So that we'll start getting people in, so that by the next meeting we have the identified working groups and at least the co-chairs of the working groups that can take a deeper dive. So that's action number one. Action number two is we're going to finish, because we didn't have everybody present. We had a couple groups that missed and one that was just a little late. And so we're going to have probably 3 or 4 presentations just to catch up with who we missed. And then we're going to talk about, have our staff, the county staff, present on their their first attempt at the issue of community education, because I think that's actually something you all want to give some feedback to. And then we'll send out, as we talk about the work plan, we're just going to keep adjusting that based on what we're learning and based on the work that we want to get done. So I know that was a lot, but mainly what I'm going to do is get a subgroup of you, and you can volunteer, or I can find you to help us look at these subgroups. I know that Councilmember Esparza and I would really appreciate volunteers before we find you. And then we'll go through and kind of shape those working groups, along with then finishing the presentations at the next meeting, along with taking a look at the education directive that Supervisor Lee would like us to look at. And I think that would be a pretty full agenda, because at that time, it'll give us an opportunity to decide what we want to dive into a little bit deeper. Does that sound okay with everybody as next steps? Okay. And then, but on the issue of data being disaggregated, we may pull out pieces of this just to start presenting on policies we know about and get people's feedback on them. All right, so with that, I think the next item was really, I kind of blended the 5 and 6 together, only because I think they were a little more linked as it relates to our next steps for our work plan. Is there any other thoughts that folks from the committee have for our work plan that you want to make sure we don't miss an opportunity at some point to talk about? And believe me, this won't be the last chance you get. I'm just curious if anybody has a thought on that.
Do we want to put up the work plan just for all of us to look at it at once?
We can do that. Well, actually, it's multiple pages.
It's pretty long.
Yeah, what I would actually recommend is that that it may make sense to just on an ongoing basis have people take a look at it, and perhaps what we can do is with the working group that we pulled together to look at the subcommittees, we can review the work plan with that group. Because Maha, you raised that for me before, and we haven't figured out a way to make it tiny. I mean, not tiny, but 1 page, but we'll work on that for the next meeting. Richard?
Yeah, I just wanted to raise up, you know, we always talk about Asian American Pacific Islander. So I just want to make sure we we make attempts to reach out to the Pacific Islanders in the community, because again, when we're talking about disaggregation, it's really a distinct communities within Pacific Islander. So
Absolutely. And one thing I'll share with any of you, whoever is missing, if you think of a person that we should go get, just shoot their name and their organization to us. We'll follow up. So don't we're going to just, my mom used to say, you just add water to the beans. So that's what we're doing. All right, Maya, and then Greg.
In response to some of the questions, I don't know if slide 3 and 4 or page 3 and 4 could be posted, but it's not the work plan, but it's the sort of the big, all the umbrella stuff that we're tasked with doing. There's a little bit of carryover on page 4, but that might be helpful, or we could just table it for the next one.
Yeah, I think I'd like to do it with the working group only because
Sounds good.
It's moving because of the good information we got today. But like I said, we're gonna voluntold some of you to help us look at it. Greg?
Looking forward to it.
Along the lines of who else to reach out to, the Filipino community, I've given your staff a couple of connections, one at San Jose State and one in the community. It would be important to involve. Trans women in particular, they feel, and there's some data to support this, that they're much more targeted than either trans men or lesbians, and they would be a good one to reach out to.
Thank you. Thanks, Greg. All right,
Cindy, just really quickly, I'm looking at the work plan, and then for the one on August 27th for community awareness, education, and prevention. We need to get reports from community groups. You have a lot of you have the Department of Education, you have college campuses, but what we're missing and what we need is the work by community groups around the issues that you have here.
Yeah, and again, Maha, that's a great point. And anybody you want us to talk to, just send them to Kathy, and we'll reach out. I will say, in some instances, we may actually need you to reach out, because if your relationships are a little closer, people were like, "What? Hate Crimes Task Force?" And it's a weird phone call to get from me. Hi.
No. We should definitely invite the Interfaith, the Silicon Valley Interfaith Council onto these meetings. I don't know if they've been represented here, but I should have thought about that earlier.
Yeah, and honestly, that's why I say we're not worried about adding folks, because as we notice voices are missing, that's what we should do. Okay, so what we're going to do, so anyway, I feel like we've got enough to do next steps. Everybody feel like we're going okay in a good direction? Like I said, Kathy will send out a quick note to folks if folks would like to help us think a little bit about the next couple meetings. I would love that. And if we have folks who are interested in co-chairing, especially on subject matters like data and education, because I think we're going to do some big groups, but we're going to really need to dig in on some very specific issues. So as we start to shape that, we'll be looking for volunteers, right, Maya?
Absolutely.
Great. And Maya, did you have any closing comments?
I have a question. Are we still going to vote on the bylaws today?
We did that under consent.
Oh, consent. I forgot.
Yeah,
Yes.
no
All right,
problem.
we're good. That's it. Thank you.
It's always good to help me. I was been telling people I have a little bit of COVID brain, so it does no downside to reminding me. Okay, so our next meeting, we've got a pretty full agenda. I want to thank you all very, very much. I learned a great deal. I want to thank all the presenters. I particularly wanted to thank Nayeli. I don't know if she's still on, but the hub is it's really the place that our young people are at, that are foster youth. And I just wanted to thank them so much for their presentation, because it was an assessment and it was very aspirational, and leave it to the youngest person here to get us that aspiration into the future. So thanks all of you. Have a very blessed, safe day. Get vaccinated when it's your turn. Wear your mask. Don't touch your face.
See you April 23rd. Bye.
Bye all. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Be well. Be safe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. The meeting has officially adjourned.